I get the house and the company. He just gets the tools. My name's Carl, 32, and I just listened to my sister, Penelope, announce my inheritance like a weather report. The Henderson Law Conference room seemed to shrink with each polite laugh that followed. Uncle Wesley chuckled. Cousin Brooklyn nodded like she'd called it months ago. Aunt Catherine hid a smile behind her coffee. Penelope sat across from me, nails flawless, Navy interview suit she bought for jobs she never applied to. Her marketing degree had hung on her wall for 8 years, long enough for her to rehearse the day Dad's construction company would become hers. "Poor Carl," she said, tapping a manicured finger on mahogany. "Dad always said you were good with your hands. At least you'll have something to remember him by." Mr. Garrison, Dad's attorney since I was 12, hadn't said a word yet. His poker face could hide a hurricane, but today there was a glint, anticipation, maybe. I kept quiet. That's how I'd survived the last decade. Let Penelope talk while I worked. She spun expansion plans at family dinners. I ran crews, managed contracts, kept clients calling us first. But today, something felt different. The tools she tossed off like spare hammers weren't just hammers. They were the laser-guided survey rigs, the custom fab gear, the proprietary forms we'd refined for years. Assets you need licenses and scars to use. Penelope has visited the shop 3 times in 5 years. Each time she complained about dust. She's never held a blueprint, never talked subpricing at 6 a.m., never watched a concrete pour ride a weather window. But she looks like a brochure suit, confidence, words like brand lift and penetration, and the family ate it up. I look like the business, worn boots, calloused hands. Dad started Bennett Construction 22 years ago with a pickup and borrowed tools. I was 10 hauling lumber. Penelope, 8, was arranging doll furniture. By 18, I was reading plans, leading crews. Dad put me through night classes, contracts, insurance, corporate structure. Penelope went off to state for marketing, promising to return and modernize the company. While she learned consumer psych, I learned never to skimp on rebar and how to bid municipal work. Dad brought me to client meetings. I learned codes and coffee orders. When she graduated, she expected a corner office. Instead, she found a company humming without her PowerPoints. "We need a social media presence," she announced over Sunday roast. Dad nodded politely while I ran through job status and renewals. Her slides sounded shiny. My results were measurable. Over the last year, though, I saw the shift. Relatives started asking her about our strategy. She answered with confidence expansion plans I'd never heard, market share numbers that existed only in her laptop. Last Christmas, she paraded a 47-page business plan, with revenue off by $500,000. The applause was louder than the arithmetic. 3 months ago, when chemo started failing, she turned to succession. Spreadsheets, articles about family firms, podcasts about legacy. She spoke like she'd already inherited. I never corrected her in public. Why? They'd already decided who looked like an owner and who looked like labor. But I remembered something Dad told me 6 years back about protecting the company from people who mistake enthusiasm for competence. So on a Tuesday night after the funeral, casseroles were gone. I drove to the office, unlocked the file cabinet, and pulled the corporate folder. Articles of incorporation 6 years old, stock certificates, board resolutions, banking authorizations. My name on everything that mattered. Bennett Construction Inc. wasn't Dad's sole proprietorship. It was a corporation with an ownership structure designed to survive him. I held 75 of the shares. I was president and CEO by resolution. Every contract over that span bore my signature. Every policy listed me primary. Anything over 500 needed my approval. Penelope didn't even have signing authority. Not because she was excluded, because she'd never been involved. Dad set it up the year she came home talking about rebrands. right as I finished business management and project law. He'd meant to explain it gently, but cancer outran courtesy. I sat under the hum of the fluorescents until midnight, reading 6 years of filings. For 6 years, I'd been running what everyone assumed I'd someday inherit. Tomorrow, the will would merely confirm the obvious, if anyone cared to read. The reading was at 2. I was early. Penelope swept in like a CEO, leather portfolio, confidence sprayed on heavy. Family filled the seats behind her, expectant. "Before we begin," she announced, "I'm committed to honoring Dad's legacy. Bennett Construction will continue serving with integrity." Uncle Wesley beamed. "Your father would be so proud. And Carl will always have a place," she added magnanimously. "Operations manager, perhaps." Mr. Garrison shuffled papers. "Shall we begin?" The will was simple. Penelope got the Maple Street house and contents, Wesley the fishing boat, Catherine the vintage tool collection, Brooklyn a cash bequest, and Grandma's jewelry. "And to my son Carl," Garrison read, "I leave my complete set of professional tools, machinery, and equipment, along with any vehicles used in the operation of Bennett Construction." Penelope's smile said, "See, the worker gets the wrenches." I asked evenly, "That's the will?" "That's the will," Garrison said. Penelope leaned back, already rearranging the office in her head. "Dad's wishes are clear. Carl keeps what he's good with. I take responsibility for the company." "About that," Garrison said, voice mild but loaded, "the business entity wasn't part of Mr. Bennett's estate." Coffee cups paused midair. "Bennett Construction has been a corporation for 6 years. Corporations are owned by shareholders, not passed by will." Penelope blinked. "What do you mean?" "Dad owned the business. His name was on everything." "The trade name is Bennett Construction," he said gently. "Ownership is determined by stock." He checked a page. "Carl Bennett holds 75% of outstanding shares and is the corporation's president and CEO." The silence this time had weight. Weather before a storm. Penelope stared at the paper like it might blink. "That's impossible. Carl doesn't even have—" "The incorporation papers are clear," Garrison said, sliding copies across the table. "Set up to ensure continuity and operational control." Wesley looked like he'd learned Santa works for the IRS. Catherine leaned in, scanning, lips moving. "But I've been planning strategy," Penelope said, voice smaller. "Talking to potential clients, researching expansion." "With what authority?" I asked softly. "Dad wanted me involved. He wanted to keep it in the family." "He did," I said. "He put it in the name of the person already running it." Garrison laid out the timeline. Incorporation right after Penelope's graduation. My management certificates. My contract authority. The bank mandates. In short, legal ownership matched actual responsibility. Wesley found his voice. "So, Carl's been running it all along?" "Legally and practically, yes," Garrison said. "All major contracts have been executed under his authority." I placed my business card on the table. Carl Bennett, President. For 6 years it had been decor in my wallet. No one had read past my name. "And the tools," Garrison added. "Specialized equipment valued at approximately $150,000 essential corporate assets. Carl already operates." Penelope did math she didn't enjoy. "What about the Henderson Shopping Center? The municipal renovation? Oak Street subdivision?" she said quickly. "Those are my leads. Those are our jobs," I said. "Henderson's been a client 3 years. The municipal was signed last month. Oak Street breaks ground next week." Her vision of the future was our present. She'd been claiming credit for work she didn't know existed. The meeting ended with Penelope requesting copies for counsel and everyone promising a family dinner summit. I drove to Oak Street, where my foreman, Vincent, was coordinating footings. "How'd it go?" he asked. Like it always was, I said. He grinned. Figured. That night, Penelope called 4 times. I let the first 3 die. On the 4th, I answered. We need to talk, she said. About what? This structure. There has to be a mistake. No mistake. I've told people I'm taking over. I've made commitments. That's your problem, I said. Which people? Investors, she blurted. From networking. They're interested in growth. The back of my neck went hot. You don't have authority to discuss financing. I thought I would after today. Now you know different. Silence. So what happens now? You decide what you want to do with your life, I said. Just not with my company. At 6:30 a.m., the Henderson PM called about rebar schedules. At 9, I walked a site with the city inspector. At noon, I checked fabrication tolerances on a custom form set. Work didn't care about family narratives. Next morning, Penelope was waiting by my truck. Eyes rimmed red, portfolio clutched like a parachute. Have you been planning this? She said. You and Dad? I unlocked the office and flicked on lights. The walls held 6 years of permits, safety plaques, change orders, photos. She looked around like it was a museum she'd heard about but never visited. Dad planned it, I said, to protect the business from people confusing good intentions with competence. That's not fair. Fair would have been asking before announcing you were in charge. My phone rang. Henderson again. Specification question. As I talked steel gauges, she traced a finger over a framed letter. A client thanking us for saving a schedule. They all know you, she murmured. They should, I said. I've been showing up. The showdown came 2 weeks later at Uncle Wesley's birthday dinner. Penelope arrived, armed with legal jargon. I've consulted attorneys, she announced. Minority shareholder rights, fiduciary duties, family trust principles. Wesley puffed up. Don't let anyone push you out. Catherine sighed about Dad, never wanting division. I'm prepared to challenge in court, Penelope said, laser-locked on me. I set down my cup and slid my phone across the table. Before you hire more lawyers, read this. On the screen. Our latest executed contract municipal water treatment expansion. 2. $3 million. Start next month. This, I said, is what Dad built. Not slides about potential. Not a brand. A company with 12 full-time employees, a dozen subs, and annual revenue north of $4 million. 4? She whispered. Last year, I said. We're tracking to 5-2. The number hung there. Her imagined inheritance had been a small business passion project. The reality was a complex organism sustained by relationships, competence, and risk, the sort you don't wing with a Canva deck. The structure wasn't to keep you out, I said. It was to keep the lights on. After that, the fight leaked air. Her attorney apparently explained that you don't unwind a 6-year-old corporate structure with clear purpose and documentation because your feelings are hurt. There was no family trust clause that overrides state corporate law. She didn't file suit. 3 months later, she moved to Denver for a marketing role at a tech startup. At Christmas, she asked about the business instead of announcing what she'd do with it. We found our way back to being siblings, just not partners. Wesley still winks about bringing her in someday, but even he hears the hollowness. Catherine's modernization sermons quieted down. Brooklyn surprised me. She started asking real questions about scheduling and margin, then shadowed me on a sidewalk. She learned the difference between appearing professional and being effective. We expanded into commercial roofing the next year, hired 6, opened a satellite yard in the next county. I built a training program for crew leads, safety first, then craft, then business. The equipment I inherited never sat idle. It earned. We invested in a second laser scanner and a tilt-up form system. Cash flow stayed tight because that's how you grow without begging investors to own you. Sometimes I drive past the Maple Street house Penelope got, the one she wanted more than anything. It's pretty in a way. Newly painted, fence straight, garage gleaming. It's a good inheritance for someone who never wanted downpours or midnight weather calls. She got a home. I got a company. Fair, if you ask the only judge that matters: results. Dad probably meant to say it out loud, but cancer edits conversations. So here's what his paperwork said for him. Ownership isn't a birthright, and leadership isn't a speech. It's competence, commitment, and the willingness to carry consequences. The tools I received weren't consolation. They were instruments. With them, we kept building. And because we kept building, the family finally saw what the suit had hidden and the boots had proven all along.